Judge Margaret Hartley's chambers smelled like old leather and lemon polish. 3:47 p.m. Tuesday. The afternoon light slanted through Venetian blinds, casting prison bar shadows across Marcus's satisfied smile. All that's left is your signature, Mrs. Castellano. His lawyer, Richard something, Armani suit. Too much cologne, slid the papers toward me. Then we can all get on with our lives. Marcus leaned back in his chair, checking his Rolex. The same Rolex I'd bought him for our 10th anniversary with money he thought came from my little inheritance. Some of us have plans tonight. He glanced at Vanessa. She sat beside him in a red Valentino dress, her hand possessive on his thigh. 26 years old. Former paralegal from his firm. The affair had been going on for 18 months. I'd known for 17 of them. Marcus, darling. Vanessa's voice dripped honey. Don't be cruel. I'm sure Claire needs time to accept her new reality. She smiled at me. Going from the penthouse to a studio apartment is quite an adjustment. I said nothing. My hands rested in my lap. The Goodwill cardigan I wore had a coffee stain on the cuff. My shoes, Target clearance, pinched at the toes. But let me take you back. 8 months earlier. That's when I'd started planning this moment. 8 months earlier, the sound of Marcus's laughter floated up from his study at 1:13 a.m. I stood in the hallway of our Tribeca penthouse, barefoot, listening. She doesn't suspect anything. His voice carried clearly. Claire's too busy playing housewife to notice where I am half the time. Vanessa's giggle. Poor thing. Does she really believe you're working late every night? She believes what I tell her to believe. Always has. The clink of glasses. That's what happens when you marry someone grateful for the opportunity. Grateful for the opportunity. I'd met Marcus 12 years ago at Columbia Law. I was top of our class. He was charming, ambitious, from old money. The Castellano family, Manhattan real estate, society pages. After graduation, he joined his father's firm. I'd been recruited by every top practice in the city. Marry me, he'd said. Be my wife. You don't need to work, you'll never want for anything. I'd loved him. So I'd said yes to the marriage. And no to the career. But I kept my bar membership active. Just in case. Now, standing in the hallway, listening to him mock me, I made a decision. I pulled out my phone and opened a recording app. Click. Over the next 8 months, I became a different kind of detective. I hired investigators, not the dramatic kind, just thorough professionals who documented everything. Vanessa's apartment, paid for with Marcus's credit card. Their weekend trips, charged to his business account. The jewelry, itemized receipts helpfully saved in his email. I documented the joint accounts he'd been slowly draining. The investments he'd moved into his name only. The property transfers I'd signed without reading because I trusted him. I consulted lawyers. Not Marcus's friends from the club. Real lawyers. The kind who win. And I called my father. Claire. His voice was warm despite the early hour. I'd forgotten he was in London. It's been months. Your mother worries. I need help, Dad. Silence. Then, tell me everything. I did. When I finished, he said 3 words. Come home, sweetheart. I can't just leave. The prenup? Did you read it carefully? Every clause. I closed my eyes. I trusted the lawyer Marcus recommended. Oh, Claire. Not disappointed. Sad. Trust is beautiful, but verification is survival. Let me make some calls. 3 days later, a package arrived by courier. Inside, copies of documents I'd signed 12 years ago, and a note in my father's handwriting. Read page 47, clause 19.3. Then read the amendment you signed on your 5th anniversary. The one Marcus said was just a formality. Call me after. I read. Then I smiled for the first time in months. Marcus filed for divorce on a Monday morning. Served me papers over breakfast. While I was still in my bathrobe. I've been generous, he said, not looking at me. You'll get $2 million. The prenup entitles you to less, but I'm not heartless. $2 million. From a man worth $400 million. Marcus, don't make this difficult. Vanessa and I are getting married next month. We'd like this finalized quickly. I looked at the papers, then at him. Of course. Whatever you think is fair. The relief on his face was almost comical. He'd expected a fight. Tears. Begging. Instead, I'd given him exactly what he wanted, a compliant wife accepting her fate. He had no idea what he'd just set in motion. Which brings us to now, to Judge Hartley's chambers. To Marcus's satisfied smile and Vanessa's hand on his thigh and the papers waiting for my signature. Mrs. Castellano? The judge peered over her reading glasses. Do you need more time to review? No, Your Honor. I picked up the pen. My hand trembled. I let it tremble. Let them see the broken wife. I'm ready. Finally, Vanessa muttered. I signed my name. Claire Castellano. The signature I'd practiced for weeks until it looked defeated. Small. Resigned. Marcus exhaled. Started to stand. Wait. I set down the pen. Your Honor, before this is finalized, there's something the court should review. Richard frowned. Mrs. Castellano, we've been through this. The settlement is fair and page 47 of the original prenuptial agreement. Clause 19.3. I pulled out my own folder. And the amendment signed on our 5th anniversary. Marcus's smile faltered. What are you talking about? The infidelity clause, I said softly. The one your lawyer buried in legal jargon. And the amendment that voided the entire prenup if you violated it. The room went silent. Judge Hartley held out her hand. Let me see those documents. Richard's cologne turned sour in the suddenly airless room. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. We've already negotiated the original prenuptial agreement, page 47. Judge Hartley's voice cut through his protest. She adjusted her glasses, reading carefully. The only sound was pages turning. Marcus leaned forward. Claire, what are you doing? I met his eyes. For the first time in 8 months, I didn't look away first. When I should have done 12 years ago. Reading the fine print. Clause 19.3, the judge read aloud. In the event of proven infidelity by either party, the injured party retains full rights to all marital assets acquired during the marriage, and the prenuptial agreement becomes void. She looked up. This is very clear language. It's also irrelevant. Richard recovered quickly. Mrs. Castellano has no proof of infidelity. These allegations are. I pulled out a second folder. Thicker. 17 months of documented evidence. Hotel receipts. Credit card statements. Text messages. Photographs. Video surveillance. And audio recordings made with legal consent in my own home. I slid it across the table. All time-stamped. All verified by private investigators whose credentials are included. Vanessa's face drained of color. Marcus, you recorded me? His voice pitched higher. In our home. My home, actually. The deed never transferred to joint ownership. That paperwork you said you filed? You never did. The penthouse is still titled in my name only. Purchased with my inheritance before we married. I opened another folder. I had the title check last month. Judge Hartley took the evidence folder. Her expression never changed, but her fingers tightened on the pages. Marcus stood abruptly. This is entrapment. It's, sit down, Mr. Castellano. The judge's voice could have frozen lava. He sat. Your Honor, Richard tried again. Even if we accept these allegations, the settlement Mr. Castellano offered is more than generous. The settlement Mr. Castellano offered is $2 million. I kept my voice steady. From assets worth approximately $400 million. Assets that, per clause 19.3, are now entirely mine. The words hung in the air like smoke. That's insane. Vanessa's voice cracked. You can't just take everything. Marcus built that empire. His family's firm, yes. Started by his grandfather. Expanded by his father. Worth about $40 million when Marcus took over 12 years ago. I pulled out more documents. The expansion to $400 million? That came from capital investments made using my inheritance. My money. Documented in these financial records. Richard grabbed the papers. His face went gray. You told me she came from nothing, Vanessa whispered to Marcus. You said she was a nobody. I am a nobody. I smiled. My maiden name is Westbrook, as in Westbrook Capital, as in the private equity firm that's been the Castellano firm's primary investor for 12 years. Marcus's mouth opened. Nothing came out. My father is Jonathan Westbrook. When Marcus and I married, Dad wanted to help, so he invested heavily in exchange for preferred shares that guaranteed Westbrook Capital majority control if certain conditions were violated. I looked at Marcus. Conditions like gross mismanagement, or using firm assets for personal expenses, or infidelity that violated the prenuptial agreement. Judge Hartley was reading the financial documents now. Her eyebrows climbed higher with each page. The jewelry you bought, Vanessa? The apartment? The trips? All charged to firm accounts. That's embezzlement, Marcus. Of company funds that my family's firm controls. I pulled out the final document. This is a letter from Westbrook Capital's board, dated this morning. They're exercising their right to remove you as managing partner, effective immediately. No. Marcus shook his head. No, that's my firm. My name is on the building. Your name is on a building my family's money paid for. Read your investment agreements. All the paperwork he signed. Without having your own lawyer review it because you were so confident. So sure I was just the naive wife who didn't understand business. Richard was sweating now. Your Honor, we need time to review these documents. A continuance, denied. Judge Hartley set down the papers. I've seen enough. These financial records appear authentic. The infidelity evidence is substantial. And Clause 19.3 is unambiguous. She looked at Marcus. Mr. Castellano, did you have independent legal counsel review the prenuptial agreement before signing? Aye. He swallowed. My father's lawyer looked at it. The same lawyer who drafted it. Silence. Did you read page 47? Clause 19.3. My father said it was standard language. Protection for both parties. It was protection. I spoke softly. For me. Your father loved you, Marcus, but he wasn't blind. He knew you'd inherited his charm, but not his character. So he made sure that if you betrayed me, I'd be protected. My father wouldn't. Your father called me the week before he died. Told me to keep my own lawyer. To never sign anything without reading it carefully. To remember that I was worth more than you'd ever acknowledge. My voice broke. Not from sadness. From fury held back too long. He apologized, Marcus, for raising a son who could love someone and still treat them like property. The room was so quiet I could hear the clock ticking. The amendment signed on your 5th anniversary. Judge Hartley held up another document. Mr. Castellano, you initialed every page, including the section that increased the infidelity penalties to include full asset forfeiture. I never read that. Claire said it was just updating our addresses. Did you ask your lawyer to review it? His silence was answer enough. Your Honor, Richard tried desperately. Mr. Castellano is willing to negotiate. There's nothing to negotiate. I stood. Clause 19.3 is clear. The amendment is legally binding. Marcus violated both. The prenup is void, and I'm entitled to the marital assets. I looked at Vanessa, including any gifts he purchased with marital funds. The jewelry, the apartment lease in your name, all of it needs to be returned. You can't. Vanessa jumped up. That's mine. He gave it to me. He gave you stolen property. Community assets he had no right to give away. I turned to Judge Hartley. I'm not asking for spousal support. I don't want anything going forward. I just want what's legally mine. What I paid for. What I built while he took credit. Judge Hartley nodded slowly. Mr. Castellano, Mrs. Castellano is correct. Based on these documents, I'm denying your divorce petition is filed. Judge Hartley removed her glasses. We'll reconvene in 30 days. Mr. Castellano, I strongly suggest you retain new counsel and review these documents thoroughly. Mrs. Castellano, please file a formal motion with supporting evidence. Until then, all marital assets are frozen. Frozen? Marcus's voice cracked. Your Honor, I have obligations. Payroll, office expenses, should have considered that before committing fraud. The judge stood. We're done here. Richard gathered papers with shaking hands. Vanessa was crying. Not pretty tears, but the splotchy, gasping kind that came with the realization that the fantasy was over. Marcus just sat there, staring at nothing. I left first. Walked out of those chambers with my head high for the first time in years. In the courthouse hallway, my father was waiting. Silver-haired, expensive suit, the kind of quiet power that didn't need to announce itself. Dad, he pulled me into a hug. I'm sorry I didn't stop this 12 years ago. I wouldn't have listened. I loved him. Past tense. I thought about it. Past tense. We walked out together into the late afternoon sun. My phone was already buzzing. Probably Marcus's lawyer trying to negotiate. I ignored it. What now? Dad asked. Now I rebuild. The firm, my life, everything he tried to take. And Marcus? I looked back at the courthouse. He'll land somewhere. Men like him always do. But it won't be on my money. And it won't be with my name attached. 3 months later, the Castellano building wasn't called that anymore. The sign came down on a Tuesday morning, replaced with sleek letters. Westbrook Castellano Legal. My name first. My family's reputation backing it. I stood in what used to be Marcus's office, now mine, and watched the installation. The view was just as good from this angle. Better, actually. Dorothy, my new office manager, knocked softly. Ms. Westbrook, the staff meeting is in 5. I'd hired Dorothy away from Marcus's father's old firm. 63, brilliant, overlooked for decades because she wasn't partnership material. In 3 months, she'd reorganized our entire operation. Thank you, Dorothy. I'll be right there. She paused. For what it's worth, this firm feels different now. People actually want to work here. After she left, I checked my reflection. Power suit, custom tailored. Hairstyled. Makeup precise. The armor I denied myself for 12 years because Marcus preferred me natural. Translation, diminished. The staff meeting was in the main conference room. 30 faces looked up as I entered. Lawyers, paralegals, administrative staff. I kept everyone from the old firm who wanted to stay. Fired the ones who'd enabled Marcus's behavior. Good morning. I have an announcement. I pulled up a document on the screen. Effective immediately, we're implementing a new compensation structure. Profit sharing across all levels. Transparent salary bands. Mandatory parental leave. Mental health benefits. Silence. Then Dorothy started clapping. The rest joined in. We're also changing how we work. No more 100-hour weeks as a badge of honor. No more glorifying burnout. This firm succeeds when our people thrive, not when they sacrifice everything to a billable hour quota. James Chun, one of our senior partners, raised his hand. What about clients who expect 24/7 availability? We'll reset expectations. Clients who need that level of service can find it elsewhere. We're building something sustainable. I looked around the room. I spent 12 years being told my worth came from how much I sacrificed, how quiet I stayed, how little space I took up. I'm done with that model. After the meeting, I returned to my office. The phone rang immediately. Claire, Marcus's voice. I hadn't heard it in 3 months. Please, can we talk? We have lawyers for that. Not about the divorce. About me. About us. He sounded hollow. I made a mistake. Many mistakes. I know. God, Claire, I know. I was an idiot. I took you for granted. I believed my own hype about being some kind of empire builder when really, his voice broke. It was always you. Your money. Your family. Your quiet strength holding everything together. I said nothing. Vanessa left. Took whatever jewelry I'd managed to hide and disappeared. My mother won't speak to me. The few friends I had were really your friends, and they've made it clear whose side they're on. He laughed bitterly. I'm living in a studio in Queens. Working as an associate at a firm that treats me like a cautionary tale. Everything you predicted. Marcus, I'm not asking you to take me back. I know that's impossible. I wanted to say I'm sorry, and that you were right. About everything. I stared out at the city. Remembered the woman I'd been 8 months ago. The one who'd stood in her hallway listening to the man she loved mock her. The one who'd decided enough was enough. I forgive you, I said quietly. You what? I forgive you. Not for you. For me. Because holding on to anger means letting you live in my head rent-free, and you've taken up enough space in my life. Silence on the line. But Marcus? We're done. The divorce will be final next month. You'll get what the court mandates, about 5% of the assets, which is generous considering the circumstances. Use it wisely this time. Claire, goodbye, Marcus. I hung up, blocked the number, turned back to my computer where a stack of work waited. That evening, my mother called. Dinner Sunday? Your father wants to celebrate the new firm launch properly. I'll be there. And Claire? Bring someone if you'd like. We know you've been seeing that architect, David something? David Warren. We'd met at a charity function. He was kind, funny, treated me like an equal. We were taking it slow? Maybe. We'll see. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet office. The city lights were coming on below. From 47 floors up, Manhattan looked like a constellation of possibilities. My phone buzzed. A text from Dorothy. First month numbers are in. Revenue up 23%. Employee satisfaction scores highest in firm history. You're doing something right, boss. I smiled. Type back. We're doing something right. The quiet woman in the corner had found her voice. And it turned out, when she spoke, people listened. Not because she yelled or demanded or proved her worth through suffering, but because she'd learned the most important lesson. Her value didn't come from what others thought of her. It came from what she knew about herself. Marcus had tried to make me small, to convince me I was lucky to be tolerated in his world. Instead, I'd taken his world apart and rebuilt it better. The revenge wasn't in his downfall. though watching him realize what he'd lost had been satisfying. The revenge was this. I'd stopped needing revenge at all. I'd built something bigger than his betrayal, created a life that didn't include him, found joy that had nothing to do with proving him wrong. He'd lost everything trying to trade me for something shiny. I'd gained myself back. And that was worth more than any empire. I shut down my computer, gathered my things, and headed for the elevator. David was meeting me for dinner. Tomorrow I had a full schedule of client meetings. Next week, a legal conference where I was keynoting about ethical practice and sustainable success. The quiet woman in the corner wasn't quiet anymore. She was just getting started.